Good evening and welcome to tonight's show of Smart Entrepreneurship Decoded. Over the past many weeks, we have met a variety of individuals from various aspects of entrepreneurship. We have met entrepreneurs themselves, we have met midlife entrepreneurs, we have met investors, we have met lawyers, and tried to get a small nugget, a small piece of practical insight from their own experience, which will accelerate your path to success. When you go out seeking funds, remember the right funds, right? Funding is not a birthright. And like I said last time, more than 60% of you don't need money, you need advice. When you go out seeking funds, the first thing that hits you, unless you're a finance professional, is the terminology. Some are simple. Friends and family around, you understand, these are my friends, these are family, they put money. HNI, high net worth individual, no problem. Rich guy, willing to invest. Angel investor, rich guy, slightly more professional investor, willing to put small amounts of money for large returns at early stage. And you hear venture capitalists. After that, you have the PE funds and SPACs and a whole lot of jargon. India has a special animal created for startup funding called the alternate investment funds. And that there are categories, as if it was not complicated enough. In that there are various categories, and it's a very specialized kind of funding pattern, but what they do is quite routine. But to understand that, I have an expert with me today, a finance professional, not like your typical chartered accountant. I know many of you always tell me that you're frustrated with your typical chartered accountant because they tell you what to do post facto. They tell you what you should have done after the event has happened. You could say that you have similar experiences with doctors, lawyers, and other professionals. And part of the reason for that is that they're trained like that. They are trained to deal with situations post facto. A doctor deals with you after you fall sick. A lawyer deals with you after a legal event. A chartered accountant deals with you after a financial event or a need. Rare is the individual, especially in the finance field, who can go beyond numbers and talk with you and guide you on strategy, guide you on scaling up, guide you on seeking funds the right way, and structure it for you. Those kind of strategic individuals are difficult to find. Tonight, our guest is one of those special kind of people. He's Vikas Sarda, the CFO of Unitas Capital. Welcome, Vikas.
Hi, Nalin. Thank you.
So before we start, give us a brief, high-level view of what is an alternate investment fund, because you have set up many of those.
Yeah. So alternate investing in India, it's quite nascent stage, you can say. So it's like investing in. Generally, people understand investing means you go to the stock market and buy shares there. So alternate investing is basically investing in the alternate ways. Investing in private limited companies, investing in maybe other structured products, and to regulate that. So as you mentioned in your initial introduction, SEBI came with this animal called AIF, Alternate Investment Fund, so that people can pool money there. It's a pooling vehicle basically. You pool money there, and as an individual or as a investor, maybe institutional investor, I may not have the required knowledge or maybe the time to go and look into these private companies and to find out these gems, because someone like InfoEdge, like today was Zomato's listing. InfoEdge invested into Zomato's listings long back in 2010. I think InfoEdge invested in Zomato. So doing that by institutions is very difficult. Info Edge did it; it's good for them. But otherwise, what the investors do is they pool their money and they give it to a fund manager. So fund manager is a specialized person who basically, or an entity. They basically are responsible to channelize those funds into these alternate investment ideas.
So, what is the difference between an AIF and a VC? Is it just size or something else?
Size and so AIFs can invest into huge varieties of companies, and they go from say seed funding to series B, C, Z, till Z, you can say whatever is the series. So they can do the huge investments. VCs comes in the early stage for the companies. They, you can say, though they should be a formal structure, they should come through, but they can be, informal structure, as you said, other form, maybe, angel investing, which people come in before that.
So, when I last checked, there were about 300 AIFs. Is it much more now, or
Much
any
more
idea?
now. Much more now. So I don't have the number right now. So to be frank, we started our first AIF in 2012. 13 we got the registration. The fundraising started in 2012. It was under the banner United Seed Fund. And now we have two AIFs which are already, fund raised and nearly invested. The fundraise for the next one is going to start. Then Unitas Capital, our investment bank is again that's starting another AIF, so that's going to be another $150 million AIF. So you see, every month, every week, there are people who are coming up and pooling money to invest, and you
So,
have to get.
do AIFs have an upper cap of how much capital they can have?
No cap like this, but the minimum cap is there. So you have to have a which is very small, obviously, but you have to have a 20 crore corpus to start an AIF. So and there is no number of investors which are capped, but obviously you should have more than one investor.
So, talk about how you got into this world, because this is a little different world from when you started, right? You look very young, but you probably started a couple of decades ago. But when you started, I don't think we knew what is AIF. The word VC also was a little alien. How did you get into this?
So I started around 22 years back, to be frank, and half of this is alternate investing career. So as you said, when I entered into this industry, it was quite new at that time, and at that time we used to call it these private equity funds, and we used to this VC and foreign venture capital and domestic venture capital. Those terms used to be there used. 2012 and 13, SEBI came with these regulations, AIF regulations. So I am the guy who actually listened to my heart. Actually, whenever there is a confusion between mind and heart. So in 2009, I was with Shell. And then Unitas came to me, and I spoke to my friends and all, and everyone said, "Have you gone mad? You are going to leave Shell and going to join Unitas alternate investment." That was the investment bank at that time, investment bank in India. But I thought it's the right decision, and to be frank, this is one of the best decisions which I have taken in my life. And so I joined Unitas in the investment bank, and then all the journey of this alternative started. And then the fundraise started, and the first fund came, second fund came, Unitas Seed Fund came, and all this. Now, recently we also started with NBFC. So there are things happening around.
So now with all this activity in the startup space in India in the investment side, how has it evolved? I mean, over the last, now you've been in this space for about 12 years. So over especially the last 4-5 years, how has it evolved? Because you also now have the family offices jumping in a big way, and so many players coming in.
So certainly the space has evolved. People are warming up, but to be frank, we see a lot of gap between India and the outside people, even the family offices, how they approach the HNIs or other investors, how they approach. things were quite different in 2012 when when we were doing this fundraise for the United Seed Fund one. You had to go to people and explain them on how it's like 10-year investment, 12-year investment. You can't come out in between. That was a big concern for people. But slowly, they warmed up to that. Now, at least we don't have to go and explain the concept to them, right? But still, if you ask me, if you are fundraising, generally what you see is majority of your money in the fund is foreign money. So Indian money is still difficult to channelize, but
Yeah.
yeah, things are changing. Yeah.
That's true. In India, we have a lot of people walking around as investors who don't have money or are money lenders more than investors. The outlook
Right.
is mindset is like that. So
That's right.
it's an important point you make. So that is on the investment side. Uh, what kind of firms do you look at? Are you industry agnostic, or does Unitas have specific funds for specific industries?
So one thing is which actually attracted me also to United is we are impact focused.
Mhm.
So by impact, it doesn't mean it's a non-profit activity. Obviously, it's a commercial activity and it's a pure investing. But over years, actually, even investors have realized that impact investing can also give you similar kind of return which commercial investing can give. Like you see the returns which investors in microfinance companies have generated, and even the job tech or ad tech guys investors have generated. So uh, we are a sector agnostic, but we focus on impact as of now, and that's the shareholders' mandate also for us. So for future, I think for United Seed Fund 3, we are more going to go on the job tech field, the job tech industry or job tech sector, you can say, in India, because we have a huge population which is getting educated and getting skilled.
Mhm.
So, and huge population which is coming up. So there is gap between if there is a gap between what industry wants and where these skill levels are. So there is a lot of scope for businesses which can actually prepare these people, group of people for the next level.
Fantastic. Actually, that's what my company does in Indonesia. Skills for future jobs is our tagline.
Yeah, and that's what is most important, I think.
Yeah. No, you make an important point there. The learners of today are quite fed up of going through 3 to 5 year degrees, paying disproportionately high amounts compared to earlier, and then finding no outcome out of it. And the most qualified people they see are the PhDs teaching them, and they don't want to be teachers. So there's a big mismatch and shift towards job oriented or job creation kind of degrees. Entrepreneur, either you be a job creator or a job seeker, but there should be some outcome out of it. And the younger people are more restless and more independent thinking. So there is a role there to play. So
Correct. You
that's
have to, yeah. So these practical aspects of life, like what you are introducing in Indonesia, so those needs to be integrated into the the course structure where you are skilling people to make them industry ready.
Yeah, I was speaking to you before the show, and I was telling you that we have a very dynamic education minister here, and for all startups, it should be an inspiration. He's the founder of Gojek, the first unicorn of Indonesia, Nadiem Makarim. He was made the education minister, and he's revolutionizing it. When we spoke to him, he was not as worried about whether we can teach coding skills to people or not, but he was worried about, can you do it by teaching them the values of respect, compassion, care, empathy, and things like that. And I was bamboozled for a moment because I didn't have any curriculum for that as yet. So that's a very interesting change. But let's move to the entrepreneur side of it. While you have seen this investment landscape change and investors change uh, a bit more from the overseas side and less from the local side, the entrepreneurs coming to you are local largely. A few maybe US returned or have worked in multinationals. Have you seen a change in their mindset when they approach investors nowadays in the last 3 to 5 years?
Yes, actually, yes. Fortunately, for everyone here, there are many of these kind of discussions which are happening or which has happened. And when you go to when you go to speak at some place and you see uh, hundreds of entrepreneurs, collected there to listen, like how investor look at say new business before investing. So that, so this mindset of learning and trying to know how other person is actually looking at the business, or how an investor is actually looking at the business, is very important, and that has started coming in now.
True.
So yeah, so I always tell them, there is a business, yeah, correct, but then every investor specialize. So you should actually think in, look deep into your business, and understand what kind of business it is, and also understand the investors. There are, as you said, 300 was a number earlier, AIFs. If you are going to say AIFs, and maybe part of them are seed funding AIFs. So your universe may be 40, 50 if you're looking for a seed funding of these AIFs. I'm only talking about these institutional investors, AIFs. So you can actually go to their websites and look into what kind of investor they are. Like I said, Unitas 3 is more gungo about growth time. So so you can look into it and approach the right set of investors.
That's a good point as well. So, you go into these events and you see these hundreds and thousands of people trying to look at the investor as if he's a rare species, not knowing and realizing that the one under pressure is the investor to find a good company to invest in. Because he's the one who is committed to his investors back, how he's going to get returns. The one who's more keen is the investor. It's just they don't get it. And this point that you made, that as much as they do due diligence on you, you need to do your homework and find the right match. What industries do they invest in? What stage do they invest in? What is the past track record, etc. But most of the entrepreneurs do a spray and pray approach, right? They just send out decks and assume somebody's going to look at them. Okay.
And as you said earlier, actually, you don't want an investor like a money lender entering into your business and screwing the future.
True. I often tell people, that an investor, the right investor, will stay on your board for an average of 10 to 15 years, because the average exit is 9 years in the world. That's longer than marriages last nowadays. You better be careful who you get into bed with.
Yeah, correct.
So, let's get a little bit more specific about your personal experiences. I'm always surprised that in my working lifetime, how entrepreneurship has become a widespread social phenomena accepted by everybody. Earlier, only certain communities, it was natural for them to get into entrepreneurship. Otherwise, parents generally told their children to get a nice government job or an IT job and go in that direction. Entrepreneurship was not as fashionable.
Yeah.
When you speak to entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you sit through a lot of pitches and pitching, early stage, advanced stage, etc. What is it that you look for personally? Forget the company. When you're looking, because you may often come across many entrepreneurs that you like, but your company's philosophy doesn't match, hence you don't invest. What do you look for?
So, to be frank, obviously, first thing remains first. So, idea, what business idea it is. So, I look more for the passion or the people behind the idea. How passionate is that entrepreneur about the idea? It's not just that one fine day he thought I should do it. I should give it a try. It's not I should give it a try attitude. You have to make it work types, like so I actually came across people who said, okay, I have 5 businesses I'm working on right now. You don't want those kind of people, right? Because
Which one will you fund?
correct, you fund one, and you will realize, say, 6 months down the line, he's interested in 3 more, third more, so you leave behind the one.
That's true. That's true. So
Because
the
entrepreneur is very lonely journey, and you have to be prepared for it. So the person, if he is not passionate about it, he will leave you somewhere in between.
passionate and focus.
Passionate,
And
passionate,
yeah,
right?
another thing you brought out is that you should be aware of how difficult a journey you stepped into. It's not as easy as you think. Do you find that still entrepreneurs walking in thinking it's easy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is there. It is there. So, because the thing is, when they hear these rosy stories of Zomato and all, like today, Zomato got listed at such a high premium, and cash burning businesses and all that stuff. So, when they hear all these stories, they feel, it's very easy. You just grow, and things are easy. Money will come easy, and so they lose focus. They lose focus on the cash. They lose focus that it's not easy. There will be downs and there will be ups, and to be frank, initially there will be more downs, and you have to cross all those things. You have to keep your motivation up and cross that. And yeah,
They also forget the 12 years journey of the Zomato founder and compress it into that 1 second success of ringing the IPO bell.
correct.
Behind every this overnight success, there's generally a 10-year history. It's just that that person started earlier
Mm.
if he's young when he became successful.
Yeah, yeah. And initial 5 years must be very bad for him, and even the later ones, because managing cash in that kind of business is very difficult.
So
You have to pay salaries, you have to pay expenses, everything.
do you find that as an issue that among founders, the skill of managing cash is not as good, or they don't give it as much importance as other things?
Actually, yes. So, to be frank, I feel many of the entrepreneurs who fail, they fail because they're not able to conserve the cash at the right time. Even the suppose a seed funder comes into a business and brings in money. So even after that, they are not able to manage the cash, and that's what basically strangles them. If they manage the cash properly, and they look into their needs and all that stuff, they can actually survive, because as I said, market will be up and down, so you have to prepare for the rainy days.
True. So talk me through, without naming the company, founders, etc. Talk me through one investment that you're really proud of, and what do you think you did right in that, or the founders just did right in that?
So that's so there are many. So the top one, maybe not the top one, but one of the good ones, I'll say, the one education company, ed tech company, we invested. So so I think so. Along with the people and the idea which we talked about, another thing maybe important is the timing of the business, or the timing when you actually start the idea of the business. Fortunately, and to be frank, all the companies which are doing good, they started the business at the right time. Uh, so they started the business at the right time, and now, being a ad tech company, obviously these digitalization also helped, and people being at home, and cut down on the physical infrastructure also helped them to grow. So that's the you can say the advantage they got because of all this. So.
So what do you think the founders did right apart from timing? And what is it that you all contributed that you're proud of that the company made it?
So they were focused, to be frank, and they always discuss with investors before doing any random decision. So like maybe expanding outside India. Uh, so it was discussed with the investors, and to be frank, it was blocked by the investors maybe for the right at that time. And then when the right time came, they actually expanded in US, and and it turned out to be very good for them.
Okay.
So they always took investors with them. So I can say that.
So do you sit with the entrepreneurs and guide them and mentor them, or is it a hands-off relationship? I'm not asking about your company. I'm asking about you personally. How do you operate? What do you prefer?
So I am actually I mentor with many of the other than my this investment side. the formal company side. I am as a mentor on the board of many of these incubation centers, and I do mentor these startups and the entrepreneurs. And so that's why I'm saying, I can see the change in the level of people or the entrepreneurs who are coming up now as compared to 4 years back. If you see 4 years from ago.
So you think the entrepreneurs have got better from a skill and knowledge perspective?
They have got better actually, because they know what can be the questions, though answers may be challenging something, but at least knowing that what can be the questions and what can be the issues which they face is a good thing. So you can look out for answers outside, right, if you know what to ask and what to know.
So I'm going to end with one final question. You are in a stressful job without a doubt. I commented when we met before the show of how much fitter you have got over the last year or two that I've known you. You've also got rid of a mustache, if I'm not mistaken. And people have this perception of investors, rushing from investment to investment, the pressure of managing other people's money, pressure of managing entrepreneurs, etc. How do you de-stress? What does a person like you do other than numbers and work?
To be frank, I love, actually, it's a newfound passion, my earlier buried passion. So I ride actually bike. So I go on these bike rides. So next month, actually, I'm going on a bike ride from Srinagar to Manali, 550 kilometers ride. So it will pass through Leh and all that stuff. So that's the only thing which.
What kind of bike do you have?
No, I have a mid segment, not a very good. So I have a 400cc Dominar. So yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Vikas. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for demystifying some stuff and sharing some experiences which will help our entrepreneurs who are on their own journey. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
No, thanks, Nalin. Thanks a lot.